Hi, I'm Jodie Rosé O'Brien, part of the AWI Extension South Australia team. We're filming at the Clothier's property today near Lucindale in the state's southeast on how they're managing footrot.
Our name's Graham and Sam Clothier. Yep, and we're farming in conjunction with my youngest son Oliver and my wife Karen and their prospective wives, and we're farming 800 hectares here at Woolumbool. Rainfall's about 525 mils, but I think it's getting less every year. So I think we're probably back on about 500 mil average now, and that's fallen off in the last 40 or 50 years over time. We're running about 3,000 ewes, mixture of merinos, got about 800 merino ewes and 2,200 first cross ewes, white Suffolk merino ewes. And we're farming mainly sheep, but we run some chooks, which you can hear in the background. We've got 10,000 hens on board and a few cattle as well.
Our pasture bases of some annual pastures and some perennial pastures. So lucerne being the main one. We're slowly getting more chicory and ryegrass around with a bit of phalaris through it. But yeah, it's probably a 30% lucerne mix ratio.
Well, we reckon we got footrot in through purchasing sheep. We didn't foot bath the incoming sheep. We quarantined them, but that obviously wasn't enough. And yeah, that was probably 5 years ago, and it took a couple of years to show up. First detected in our rams actually in 2022 in the late spring. So we were just looking at building the rams up to join, and we noticed that some of them were a bit lame, so we got them in and were horrified at some of the state of their feet. So we got the vet out, or two vets actually, and they took swabs and ended up with a prognosis of virulent footrot. I think it was about 3 weeks that we got the swabs back, because they had to wait for the swabs. And some of the cultures took out to 20 days. So we had a range of bacteria on the farm, and from quite virulent down to about four days to culture up to about 16 to 20 days, yeah.
We had PIRSA help us set up a plan, footrot plan, starting with trimming all their feet, and we actually started using zinc sulfate, standing the sheep in zinc sulfate for 20 minutes. And after using that for 12 months, we still had footrot, so we actually moved to a formalin-based product. They walk through a wash bath, which is 4 or 5 metres long, and then 10 to 12 metres of formalin, single file. And that has been a time saver more than anything, rather than waiting for them to stand in zinc sulfate.
So it was quite time consuming. And look, some people have built bigger baths. I mean, that bath there holds, I don't know, about 60 sheep off shears, so it's not really big enough. You need to hold 150 probably to actually be meaningful. When you get a mob of 800 in, it's quite a daunting task to stand 60 there for 20 minutes, and then, because that nearly takes all day. So first time the sheep run through the bath is the biggest hassle, because you've got to keep directing them where to go. But once they've done that, they learn very quickly, yeah. And the individual file seems to work really well.
We have an in and out system, so the stock come in the laneway, and then once they exit the yards, they go out a different way. And that's a bit of the same in the yards. They have an in and an out.
Trying not to cross over the same path, so we can get clean sheep going out all the time. We always bath after we trim, and we bath after we check, so that's 2 times in the summer. And then we'll probably, depending on when it rains, we'll probably bath once more before the opening rain. and then we may even bath sort of the end of winter as well, just depending on what we see out in the paddock. I would imagine we'd be pretty clean from here on, but you never know.
Yep, where the formalin.
Yes, where the formalin is, you can get them in, run them through, and then back in the paddock, or back in a different paddock, because 7 days is your minimum spell time for your paddock, and if you can go 14, well, that's the recommended. Today's foot bath was our second check, having trimmed about 5 weeks ago, and when they were foot bathed first for the summer. This is their second bath, and we would think that everything from here on is pretty clean, but we'll bath once more just to make sure. Clean is when Persa comes in and doesn't find any foot rot. So I think they work on 100 animals from every 500 that they've got to look at and actually individually inspect. And then of course you've got to find nothing in that they can swab and get a culture from.
We've checked. We did 800 by lunchtime, and then we did 500 after lunch, and all of them have been through the bath, and we actually got an extra mob in and put them through the bath as well. So it would be 1,800 sheep through the foot bath quite easily.
But today, it's only a checking day. When you're trimming, you really, especially on the first trim, when you first start, because the sheep are overgrown and haven't been touched, that's quite slow. So you might only do 250 for the whole day, and that's a pretty big slog when you've got a few thousand to do. So just a little tip on the electric shears: if you use your thumb on the trigger, not your finger, you'll find you'll get on quite well.
Yeah, we started with some air shears and electric shears, and we've got 2 sets of electric shears now. Because the air shears are a bit big and clunky, and they still work really well. The electric shears just seem to be a bit easier to use. Yeah, any introduction of stock, we now foot bath on arrival and put in a quarantine paddock, and they could get foot bathed again before actually going out on the farm. We can also tip any over to make sure that none of them have foot rot.
And we're usually only purchasing in young sheep, so they're all got an end point to go to slaughter anyway. So the impacts on your business can be actually very major if you're in a season where it's wet and warm. It can be absolutely devastating for the sheep. You can get every sheep on the farm sore-footed, and some of those won't. You have to needle with antibiotics to actually get them to survive. So it can be devastating if you're not on top of it. The first year we didn't have a long summer, and then we went into an early break season that was warm and moist, and it just went right through the whole flock. And then we had little lambs with tails on them still, and they were sore as. So we had to mark the lambs, and we foot bathed the ewes, and then come back 2 weeks later and we had to run the ewes with their lambs through, otherwise, because you couldn't get the lambs through on their own. So that was a bit of a challenge, but that worked really, really well, because we only vaccinated 3 lambs with antibiotics to actually make them survive.
Another big factor has been our time in the trimming and checking. It's been very time consuming. We decided to trim ourselves and check everything ourselves. There's contractors out that can check for you, but we decided to use our own labour, and yeah, we've got quite a good system now. Also, we've got a draft handler, and that has been paramount to handling the stock so that you can check efficiently.
We do record what we do, and mainly it's the sale of the suspect sheep. We just hive them off once, because you do it in a block, you trim in a block, and you cull in a block. So you've got, say, 500 ewes out there that you don't want on the farm anymore. They go straight to abattoir, and the rest should be relatively clean. So we haven't worked on keeping suspect mobs until now, which is our 3rd year. We think we're quite clean, and we've got out basically ones that haven't got foot rot, but they've got a suspect crack or something like that, and we'll go back through those in a couple of weeks and probably trim all those before we bath them again, just to make sure that there's no underruns or any other issues with their feet. No, you can't do much with your pasture. And look, our pastures, whilst it doesn't look here, because you've got little hills, over those little hills is just pretty well dead flat, so we just get a skim of water right through the winter, and sheep can be puddling in that much water for 3 or 4 months. So you can see how a bacteria can spread to every sheep.
With the pastures, we try and break paddocks, so spell the paddocks for 14 days before we're putting stock back in those paddocks.
So we generally run bigger mobs through the summer, which is easier to do, and then spell the paddock, because once you get through to lambing, there's nearly sheep in every paddock. So that makes it hard to spell paddocks when it's like that. We opted to go hard on the sheep, so we didn't try and look at anything but their feet to cull. If they were suspect, they went out, and it's quite amazing when you come back to check that you still find sheep that you've missed or have got through. Not many, but you only need one, and I think that's what's happened in the last year. When we didn't get cleared last year, there's been a couple just hanging around. Read the foot rot manual that's out and about. We had 2 or 3 copies, and we've given them away to other people that have had foot rot once we've read them extensively, and yeah, just follow those the procedures in that manual, and you'll go pretty well.
Got any tips for other producers when treating foot rot?
Just that it's a challenge, and if you grab the bull by the horns, you can beat it. So
We'd like to extend our thanks to the Clothier family, in particular Graham, Sam and Ollie, for their time to film their case study on foot rot. AWI Extension South Australia thanks Australian Wool Innovation, the Department of Primary Industries and Regions, and the Sheep Industry Fund for their support.